If you could only keep 3 knives out of your collection for the rest of your life, what would those 3 knives be? How's it going, everybody? I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And if this knife looks brand spanking new, it's because it is. Now, you might remember Bestechman, the latest sub-brand from Bestech, which is handling their budget line. You see, they came out with this guy, the Bestechman Dundee, not too terribly long ago, their very first model, and it was a hit. Unilaterally and universally across the board, everyone that checked it out said what I said, which was, this is not just good, it's damn good. And so when they reached out to me and said, hey, Rollshambo, would you be interested in checking out our newest model? Listen, if it's sharp and shiny, I want to check it out. This is the Bestechman Ronan, a new offering from them which utilizes a crossbar style lock, or as many of you might know it as, the axis lock. But they can't call it that because that's what Benchmade calls it. So we're going to check this out. It hasn't been released yet. I don't even think there's been any videos made about this yet. We are aiming to be the first to date. So let's check it out. How good is the Bestechman Ronan? All right, everybody. So this is the brand new offering from Bestechman. It's called the Ronan. And no, it's not Ronin, like, you know, Rogue Samurai. I'm sorry. It's Ronan. And I keep forgetting what Ronan stands for, but it's pronounced Ronan. And I'll go ahead and put the description from Google up there so that you know. That being said, Bestechman did reach out to me. They did send this my way. I am honestly quite excited to be one of the first people to check this knife out, because it's not just them coming out with another version of the Dundee, which was wildly popular and well lauded by the knife community and those who review knives like myself. I love this knife. The Bestechman Dundee is an amazing knife at the price point of the $40 to $60 range. And so when they reached out to me, I had high expectations for this guy. Now, truth be told, I've had this in my possession now for about 2 days. 2 days. And I did that because I wanted to have a little bit of time to carry it before I gave my first impressions, because I wasn't sure. Right out of the gates, I wasn't sure. And here's why. This knife utilizes a crossbar style lock. Most people would call that an axis lock. They can't, because another brand already does that. I don't know what they're calling this version of their axis lock, but it runs on the same principles, okay? It uses an omega spring and this crossbar. Now, I've reviewed one other knife on this channel that has a crossbar style lock, and that is the Kaiser Drop Bear, which I thought was a phenomenal knife. It scored really well in the rankings. It scored as a high recommend. So I have high expectations for this, but I also try to temper my expectations, because according to them, this will be in the low $50 price range when it hits retailers December 14th. At the time of recording this video, it is December 7th. So that means that in a week, it will be hitting retailers. Something that's really exciting is that I'm actually getting my own discount code. And I'll link down below with a direct link. It won't be live until the 14th, but if you decide that you like this one and you want to get in on an entry-level crossbar style locking knife, make sure to check it out, because if you use my link and my code, I don't get anything, but you get 10% off, which is pretty cool. I don't need a kickback for that. If you like it and you want one for yourself, it's the holiday season. Go ahead and treat yourself, or treat a friend or family member if you're trying to buy them a knife. So with all of that being said, what do I think about this knife? Well, my first impression on here is almost all about this lock, because again, the only other crossbar style lock that I've reviewed on the channel is the Kaiser Drop Bear, and the Kaiser Drop Bear that I reviewed was used. So I don't know what the break-in period is like on those, if it's long, if it's not, so on and so forth. My first impression of this one is that it's a very stiff feeling spring. Now, I will say this, in just the last couple of days, the spring has lightened up considerably. So I know that there is a break-in period. I've also heard people's concerns with knives like the Benchmade bug out, with the Omega springs not being the most reliable for those knives, but I can't say anything about Bestechman because, well, it's their second knife. So we'll have to wait and see just how reliable that crossbar style lock really is. The good news is that you can get replacement springs, and even if this does stay on the stiffer end like it currently is, you can get lighter gauge Omega springs. So you could potentially do some really cool modifications to really make it your own and make it your style, which I think is pretty dang nifty. So let's talk about the materials here. You get these really, really well contoured G10 handle scales. You get a backspacer. Hallelujah. It's like they've been watching my videos, I swear. With that backspacer, you also do get a spot for a lanyard, and they did it right. They didn't put it through the knife and ruin a spot for the pocket clip. They added a post, cut out a little divot from this backspacer, and you can put it there. So if you want a lanyard, you can have a lanyard. If you don't want a lanyard, you don't have to worry about it, and you don't even really notice where you put that lanyard anyways. The pocket clip is a stamped pocket clip, and this one is actually in a style that I don't entirely mind. It is stamped and it goes down into a ski jump. Perfect. Now, I've carried this in pocket since I got it for the last couple of days, and I'm happy to report that it slides in and out of the pocket perfectly. There's no issues. It's nice and springy. I'm not a huge fan of stamped pocket clips in general, but this one works very well, and so it gets a pass from me. I actually like it better than Spyderco's stamped pocket clips, which you'll have to watch some of those videos to find out exactly what I mean. Here's how the action works. It doesn't have a real detent. The detent is the pressure created by the crossbar against the tang of the blade, kind of like how you would feel with a button lock. And now, unlike with a button lock, I actually feel like you get quite a bit more detent on this, and I find myself fidgeting with this a lot. Now, unlike with the drop bear where I can actuate this with one hand, it's really, really hard to actuate this with one hand, or excuse me, with one finger on this one. Now, it's possible that it could break in more and that could change, but I don't know if I can count on that yet. You can actuate it by using both your fingers and then pulling down on the lock. And if you want to know what I mean when I say that it's a bit on the stiffer end, think about a Spyderco Manix 2. It's going to have about the same level of stiffness as the ball bearing lock on a Manix 2. I would actually argue that this one's easier to actuate simply because of how they have that crossbar nub set up. It's a lot easier to actuate than a Spyderco Manix 2 with their textured, plastic things. So that's actually rather nice. It does have a thumb stud, no flipper here, and the thumb stud works well. It's not going to be super fly out fast because of all the pressure from that lock bar when it rolls against the tang of the blade. Now, as far as disengagement, you disengage it and it swings shut, no issue. But I think of these knives as more than just fidget monsters. I mean, they have to be fun to fidget with, and this one is decently fidgety, but it also has to be something that is comfortable in the hand. I have large to extra large size hands, depending upon the glove maker. And in this case, I have no problem getting a full grip. The jimping on the spine of the blade is rather confident. It's there, it's deep enough to get a good grip where you need it, and that's it. You'll notice that there's no cutout here. There's no front finger cutout. That is something that I kind of wish that they had explored, because I see an opportunity for that there, and they could have had a really good choke up point. As it stands, you can put your finger right there, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it was designed for that. So it's not really designed for a choked up feel. In reverse grip, it feels absolutely great. The slope of the handle scale here at the back gives you a nice positive place to put your thumb for that extra bit of support. And this leaf style drop point blade is rather cool as well. It has some very, very slight swedges here at the very top, and while it's not crowned on the spine, those edges are well knocked down, and it stays decently thick almost all the way to the tip. Now, for comparison, we'll go ahead and compare it against the other knife from the Bestechman lineup. Now, as you can see, These are going to be very, very similar in length. However, it's going to have a wider carry profile than the Dundee. It also feels a bit heavier than the Dundee, which makes sense because it's quite a bit thicker. Now, if you look at this, you'll see that the Ronan sticks out a bit more. Now, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because the thicker the handle scales, the more comfortable it feels in my hand. I'm not sure if you like thicker scales or not, but I do. And so I'm actually really enjoying that. We get the same single-sided pivot, single-sided captive pivot that we got on the Dundee, and the hardware is all the same T8 hardware. That's a nice touch as well. Now, Bestechman aims for everyday carry type of knives that you can use in everyday carry type of situations that's affordable and attainable, and I really like that. It doesn't have to be the most flashiest thing ever, it just has to be solid. How's the lockup? It's solid. How's the centering on the blade? It's solid. Nothing is awry. The liners are steel liners and they are shadow boxed, which kind of contributes to the thick nature of these handle scales. Now you might be wondering, can I get some solid specs, please? Well, while they have not necessarily listed this yet, because again, it drops on the 14th, they did send this info sheet to me. The actual model number is BMK02A for this one, and that letter at the end will change depending upon the color that you get. They're going to come out with several different color variations for this, so if you're not a fan of black and satin finish, good news, you can get it in other finishes and other colors on the G10, and that's pretty cool too. It's using 14 C28N steel, which I think is great. The finish on this one is satin, G10 handle scales. The overall length is just shy of 8 inches. The handle length is about 4.6. Blade length is 3 1/4, and the blade thickness is 138 thousandths behind the edge. Now, something that they did not go over is the weight, and I can tell you that it definitely feels heavier than the Dundee. Let's go ahead and find out for certain and see just how much it weighs. Based on what I'm feeling here, I'm going to say that it weighs somewhere in the 4.5, I'd say about 4.5 ounces. 3.5 to 4.5 ounces. Let's see. 4.27, so right around where I expected it to. Now, I have a lot of heavy knives in my collection, so this weight does not necessarily feel that heavy to me, but it might be to you, so that's just something to keep in mind. Overall, my first impressions of this are good. I don't think that it's nearly as fidgety as the Dundee, at least so far, and a lot of that has to do with how this crossbar actuates, but I'm really enamored with the idea of buying some Omega springs that are lighter gauge and then modifying this at the $50 price range. Call it $45 if you use my discount code. There's a lot of opportunity to really make this your own. I believe you can get this in Jade G10 as well, and so there's even an opportunity there to further modify it yourself. These are not things that they've mentioned to me, these are just things that I've been thinking of in the last couple of days. I have been enjoying carrying it, and part of that is due to the blade shape. I really like this leaf style drop point blade shape, and I'm not normally a drop point kind of guy, but I think that overall the looks are rather good. It's got great design lines. I'm not sure who designed this one. I don't know if it was Ostap Hell or Kombu or someone else entirely, or if it's just an in-house design. I don't know. In the next couple of weeks before I do my Grail or Garbage review, I will try to get that answer to see if it's an in-house design or if it's a design from one of our favorite knife designers. So keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, again, I'm quite impressed because it's a $50 knife with a solid crossbar lock, G10, and 14 C28N steel. That combination is really, really good, and I'm super excited to see how this goes when it releases on the 14th. Again, that's in 7 days because today is the 7th, so make sure that you check it out, and if you're interested, I will leave a link with my discount code below. Again, I don't get anything from that. If you click on that link, use my code and you'll get 10% off. So I don't get anything, but you do, and it tells them that you actually watched my video. So maybe that does help me out a little bit. Guys, if you liked this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, boo-hoo, there's a button for you too. And if you want to see more content on this Bestechman Ronan, make sure you hit subscribe. I'm Rollshambo. I'll catch you on the flip side.